I'm Clare Edwards. I'm an independent producer. That means I organise events and music projects, all within the music realm pretty much. And so I get paid for doing the organising, quite often trying to work with events that might never have existed before and starting from scratch and working the whole thing out. Or sometimes an event that's been going for a while and people ask me to come along and try and move it along or develop it or change it a bit for them. My typical day, typical week, is I might have 2 or 3 days in Birmingham. Sometimes I get to sit at home all day and work through my emails, which is quite a nice thing sometimes, trying to avoid daytime TV if I can. And then other days I'll be rushing off to meetings around Birmingham. I'm working for the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra at the moment, helping them out with a couple of projects. So going along to the local choir that they're set up, that I've helped them organise, and make sure the choir members are happy with the direction of where the choir's going, and there's all the sort of local ideas about how it should go, and trying to fit that with the funding. And then I usually end up on a train at some point every week to London for something, usually a meeting about my project at the Roundhouse or something else, or working with a new client, or just catching up with somebody that might be useful. Sometimes you have these meetings with people when you're freelance, you don't really know where they're going, but they're kind of worth keeping going. So my working week's quite varied, it's never quite the same, but that's a kind of pattern that I might follow. What I'm doing now is very different to what I thought I was doing at 14. I didn't know there were the options that there are, really. I'd got into music. I got into classical music quite late, as classical musicians go. A lot of people get forced to start when they're 4 or something. I did the reverse. I forced my parents to buy me a clarinet at the age of 11. So I was really into it. I really discovered music and I loved it. And the only thing I could see I could do other than being a player, which I had started too late to become, was a teacher, a music teacher. And that was because those are the people I'd seen around me. I was inspired by my music teachers, they'd encouraged me. The backdrop was I was also running my own concerts by then, putting choirs together, making my own posters and tickets and organising events and loving it. But at no point did anyone ever say, oh, you could get paid to do that. So at 14 I thought I'd be a music teacher because that was the closest I could get to doing something I loved, and obviously later that evolved. I went to university, very open-minded. I'd done music. I went to do a music degree, a very pure music degree, partly because I didn't want to close my options down, and I wanted to be a teacher, so I thought I'd do a music degree, then a teacher training course. That seemed to be the option. But when I got there, I got really excited by student politics as well. And that was, for me, an opportunity to get involved with how the world works. And putting that against the backdrop of music that I was involved with, suddenly I could see how music could speak and how music could be involved with how the world works. And I think that was a tipping point for me, that music was more than just something you do for pleasure. Music was part of our society, and I suppose that influenced the way I started organising events and the kind of events I was getting involved with. But I think I realised when I was a student, when I put on my first really big gig, well, I thought it was big, in Sheffield Cathedral, and I could step back and see it all happen, having organised it all, and get the same kick as I got on stage. I was getting the same buzz from being part of that as being on stage. I didn't need to be on stage to enjoy being part of it, and that's something, that's particular to me and people who become producers. When I first graduated, or before I graduated actually, before my final year, I'd come back to Birmingham from studying in Sheffield, and I used to serve chips at the Mac in the cafe, and as a result I got to know all the faces at the Mac of the different companies who were based here, and actually I volunteered for a few people, as you do. I'd also done some work as a steward, so I sort of sat in the cinema and got paid for it, which was brilliant, tearing tickets. And there was a woman here who I talked to who ran a company at the time called Sound It Out, which was a community music company, and it was just its very starting point. And I remember saying to her, look, I'll just come and help you, whatever you like. And she went, no, I'm paying you. And that was great. And I was getting paid more than I was for serving chips. and I didn't really know what I was doing. But she was really pleased, and she bought me a box of chocolates as well as paying me. So I was extra pleased, and that was running an event at Town Hall with some young people. And she was running it obviously, and I was just assisting. But my eyes were open and my ears were flapping, and I was just taking it all in, that whole experience. And I got paid, so I was really quite happy at that point, because as a student, I was just trying to grab every experience I could. Once I realised that working in the arts and working in music as an administrator, as it was called then, was what I wanted to do. Well, I suppose working in the creative industries and working with musicians a lot, there's a world of, well, you can work for free all the time. There's enough work out there for free if you want to take it, to be busy all the time. And when I was freelance the first time round, I didn't have a massive problem with that. I was a grafter, I was quite junior, so people just basically paid me to do stuff, and I wasn't very expensive, and that was fine. Once I got onto being quite experienced, I did a brief stint at the Learning and Skills Council, and I had a proper job for 2 years, which is really the only proper job I've had. People saw me suddenly as someone in the establishment. And when I left that job and went freelance, people considered me still on the payroll in the public purse, even though I was working for myself back then. So I suddenly got a lot of phone calls going, Claire, can I pick your brains? Claire, can we have a cup of coffee? Claire, could you help me with my event I'm putting on? And I very quickly realised I was spending probably about a day or two a week talking to people about their projects with no benefit to me. It wasn't helping me learn, I wasn't getting anything back for that. And I didn't mind doing that, but it was getting out of hand. And so I had to pull it back, and I actually put a blog post up that said, if you want my advice, it's £75 an hour, unless you come to the MAC on a Thursday, or the last Thursday of the month. And I used to come and sit at MAC on a Thursday and say, anybody wants to come and get free advice, that's the day, the rest of the time I'm busy. I've been really lucky being able to be freelance for most of my career, or at least part-time on a job and then freelancing the rest of the time. It meant I met a lot of different people. I've had really bad bosses and clients, and very early on, and that's allowed me to go, I don't want to be like that. And I've had really amazing, inspiring bosses who've said, you're working too hard, go home now, who've been really understanding of the fact that I'm a human being as well as a worker. And I've always wanted to emulate that. When I've had people work for me, I've thought, they've worked really hard, they're getting tired, send them home. And you pick up things like that. So I suppose I'm a bit of a kleptomaniac of inspiration, because I look around me and I take the good bits and I look at the bad bits, and I take note of the bad bits so that I try not to be the same. What continues to motivate me after doing this probably for 20 years now is, as a creative person, the thing that I create is the events and the projects, and to watch something that wasn't there before happen and become real is partly what I get a buzz out of, because then you see the impact of it. So watching people loving a gig, or I've still got in my memory working in a school in Perry Bar many years ago and doing a project which was around dance, and there were some young people in the audience who were a bit like, not sure about this, and by the end of it they were up and absolutely loving it and into it. And I remember feeling tears in my eyes, because I was just thinking, we did it. We made this work, and this was actually quite tricky. So one of the most useful things I suppose I've learnt going through my career the way I have is that do what you enjoy and do it well, and understand that other people will enjoy the stuff you don't enjoy. So actually it's always good to be able to work with other people. I think sometimes in the creative industries people can isolate themselves and go, I'm going to run my own business and be me. But although I'm freelance and I'm a sole trader, I work with lots of people who I can bounce off. I've learned that I'm not brilliant at everything, and that's okay. Courses that say to you, oh, you're good at this but not so good at this, you need to work harder on this, that's fine, because it's good to be a bit better. But if it's not your strength, somebody else will have that strength. Work with other people, collaborate, learn from other people. And I, for a long time, didn't delegate stuff I didn't like, because I thought no one else would like it too. And actually you learn that other people do like and thrive off things you don't. So concentrate on being really brilliant at the things you do thrive on, rather than spending time worrying about the things you're not so good at and trying to make them slightly better, because you're never really going to be that special if that's what you do. You'll just be mediocre at everything. But get the thing that you're good at as good as you can get it. And if you know you've got weaknesses, admit to them and find other people who can plug those gaps.
you.